What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to another Week 6 preview and prediction where today, maybe this one didn't quite catch your eye when you were looking through the slate of Week 6 games. Maybe you looked at this one, a super duper late West Coast nightcap game that you thought, yeah, we can scroll over this one. Do not scroll over this game, my friends. This is going to be an absolutely fascinating game from Berkeley, California. I think this has the potential to be a good one. It also is the site of College Game Day. I believe the first time they've ever been to Berkeley at Cal, it's the Miami Hurricanes and the California Golden Bears. We'll dive on into everything you need to know about this matchup in just a little bit, but before we do that, I have to say my thank yous and show my appreciation for all the love and support that I continue to get either here on YouTube or outside of YouTube as well. First off, if you want to help support me on YouTube and you haven't done so already, and you're as big of a college football fan as I am, a big college football nerd as I am, got to hit the subscribe button, got to ring the bell, and I thank you for taking time out of your day to simply watch this video. You can also help support the channel by interacting with it in any way you can, by liking, commenting, or sharing, and even outside of YouTube. If you'd like to help support me, in other ways, give me a follow on Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it. It's at TailgateNate29, capital T, capital N. I would really appreciate a follow over there as I sort of tell you guys about what I do as a sports media student and all the other field work that I do outside of YouTube. Again, I'd really appreciate the support in any way you can give it. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall dive on in to this honestly really, really exciting matchup. I can't wait to watch this one. Maybe, again, this is the game that you guys are sort of scrolling over. Watch out for this one. We could have another potential top 10 upset. That just sort of seems to be the theme for today's predictions, I guess. Possible top 10 upsets. I absolutely could see this one being a top 10 upset, even though it probably isn't as likely as the other two we've covered today. I still would watch out for this one. Hey, how do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Glad you asked. We are going to take a deep dive into both teams when they possess the football and give you some keys to the game. So we will first look at the Hurricane offense against this Cal defense. We will flip it then and look at the Golden Bear offense versus Miami's defense. And at the end of the video, I'll sort of give you some final thoughts, how I think this game is going to play out, as well as a final score prediction for who comes away with the win in Berkeley. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive on in and start talking about this Miami offense. And I mean, come on, where do you even start? This is one of, if not the most explosive and best offenses in college football. And the Hurricanes have been electric so far this season. Even when you go back to that game against Virginia Tech this past week, that was a nail biter. That was a very fun game down the stretch. They still had over 500 yards of total offense. They still put up 38 points. They were still efficient as ever on third down. They went 10 of 15 on the season, guys. They are just right around 65%. This is a Miami offense that has been simply sensational. Much like what happened last week, it's a team that cannot afford a letdown. Well, how did it almost have a letdown this past week? Turnovers. It turned the football over 3 times. 2 interceptions thrown by Cam Ward and 1 fumble loss that really helped Virginia Tech either stay in the lead, get in that game late. This is a Miami team that has to avoid the turnover battle here. No exceptions. It cannot happen. That is what is going to lead to a Miami Hurricanes letdown if one is going to be had in Berkeley, California. Because, I mean, you take a look at this Cal defense, the rush game department, hey, they're a pretty solid rush defense. The pass defense department, they're a pretty solid pass defense as well, guys. This is the Cal defense that, I mean, overall, you take a look at who they have played so far this season. They've gone up against some pretty solid teams so far. I mean, Auburn, that's definitely still a solid team, and I know it feels like Auburn has been finding ways to lose football games lately. On the road against an SEC opponent, holding them to only 165 passing yards, 121 rush yards, 4 yards per carry. I mean, yeah, you'd like that rush defense to improve a little bit there in that game, but picking up a road win against an SEC opponent is not easy. They held San Diego State to some really low totals, and even though Florida State did beat them because the offense wasn't really there for Cal, this still was a Florida State team that was held to only 177 pass yards and was held to 107 rushing yards. This is the Cal defense, guys, that can get it done, especially when you look at some of the bottom categories. They have forced 10 sacks this season. They have forced 11 turnovers so far this season. This is the Cal Golden Bear defense that has really been able to step up in some big moments here, and as again, the stats will show you and prove it, has been pretty darn solid this year at being able to force pressure, being able to control games, being able to get teams to turn the football over. That's something that Miami had trouble with last year. The offensive line play was not that great. They turned the football over a lot. Besides this past game against Virginia Tech, they haven't really done that. And again, this, with all the transfers coming in, is one of, if not the most explosive offenses in college football. And probably what you could argue a Heisman frontrunner, if not the Heisman frontrunner in Cam Ward, has just been sensational, and you almost just can't find enough words to describe the way that Cam Ward has played for this team so far. 1,782 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions on the year. Obviously, you want to cut back on the 4 interceptions, but he's the second leading passer in all of college football, right behind that of Ole Miss's Jackson Dart, and he arguably has been a lot more electric than what Jackson Dart has been this year. I know Jackson Dart, they just got their first test against Kentucky, lost that game. Hey, we're going to preview Ole Miss South Carolina later on this week, possibly tomorrow. But this is the Golden Bear defense that hasn't really faced an offense quite like Miami's. Auburn, I mean, sure, they got some solid pieces, but overall, that's not a team that's led by their offense. Florida State, we know how abysmal that offense has been this year. San Diego State, consistently a team that really is on the backs of their defense. And honestly, that might be the best offensive team that Cal has faced so far this season is San Diego State. Little bit of a script flip. Sean Lewis is their offensive-minded head coach. The offensive philosophy changed a lot. They're kind of really led by a lot of playmakers on offense this season. You could argue Florida State may be the best offense they've played so far this season as well, but they're just far and away have not been the offensive caliber of players on this Miami side of the ball that, or I should say, that Cal has faced this year. Cal has faced nothing like this Miami team. Can they slow them down? I think one way to slow them down is slow down their productions on third downs. That's what helps this Miami offense stay on the field. They have to win third downs here, no exceptions. The defense has got to keep this Miami offense off the field for as long as possible. Now, a lot of that also goes into the offense doing their part. We'll talk about what their offense can do here in just a second, but this is a California defense that must win that battle on third downs. And again, you see the recipe this past week. Miami outgained Virginia Tech by over 120 yards. They still were really good on third down. For the most part in that game, they looked like the better team until it came to the turnover battle where they lost it 3-1. If Cal is going to win this game against Miami, the defense has got to keep the ball out of this Miami Hurricanes potent offense's hands for as long as possible. And the way to do that, win the battle on third downs, may even have to force some turnovers in this game here as well. But let's take a look over here at the California offense. And I know that this guy does not get as much spotlight as Cam Ward, as Jackson Dart, as some of the other quarterbacks we have here in the nation. But hey, if you think for 1 second that you should not be paying attention to a guy by the name of Fernando Mendoza, I think you're making a very big mistake. For the most part this year, he's been really, really good. 892 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 picks for Fernando Mendoza so far this season. Now, obviously, when you go back and you take a look at I believe it was the Florida State game, Fernando Mendoza still threw for over 300 yards, did have 1 interception in that game, no touchdowns, of 56.3 QBR, might be the worst that he has had so far this season, but he really helped control the pace for this Cal team in that road SEC win against the Auburn Tigers. He was a pretty big part there in that win against the San Diego State Aztecs as well. Threw for 198 passing yards there. And what will really impress you about Fernando Mendoza, 67.5% completion percentage. Sure, it's not some of or I should say one of the better numbers that we see out of any quarterback in the nation this year. But Fernando Mendoza, the stat line isn't going to blow you away. He's not going to get the spotlight as a lot of other quarterbacks in this nation, especially when you take a look at the guy on the other side of the field there, on the other side of the line of scrimmage. Fernando Mendoza is going to be a difference maker for Cal in this game. He has been a huge part to pretty much every single game that Cal has played this year. He's been pretty consistent. You take a look at a lot of the games that Cal has played this season. Fernando Mendoza has been a big part in that, and he's got a lot of really good weapons to be able to throw to here as well. Now, he's distributed the football really well. Naziah Hunter, as a freshman, has been a very, very big weapon for them. Mason Sterling has been there as well. The tight end and Corey Dyches has been a pretty big part for them as well. They got 4 receivers with at least 100 receiving yards so far this season. Fernando Mendoza, I think, is going to have to be a little bit bigger of a dynamic playmaker and maybe even an even bigger difference maker than he's been for the Golden Bears so far this season, because this is a Miami defense that has stepped it up in every facet of the season. Don't get me wrong, this was a solid defense last year. They are much, much, much better this year, especially up front. I think both teams are going to look to be very, very aggressive on this side of the ball, because this is the Cal team that I think is going to want to take their shots downfield. They know they have to create the big play to be able to go punch for punch, round for round, for what this Miami Hurricane offense is going to be able to throw at you. But this is a Hurricane defense that's also going to look to be aggressive, especially with their pass rush, because they forced 18 sacks this year. That's one of the best marks in the entire country. Cal has allowed 16 sacks this year. That's one of the worst marks in the entire country. If Fernando Mendoza gets time to throw, the offensive line can buy him time. Mendoza's talented enough to find guys downfield and be that difference maker that Cal needs him to be. But I just talked about it and gave you a little preview there, right? Miami has every possible advantage in the trenches that you could ask for. Pass rush against a bad offensive line this year, they've got it. A rush defense that has been really good against the team that hasn't run the football as well as they've liked to this year. Now, I know that Javian Thomas has been really good for him, but your leading ball carrier and Jaden Ott hasn't been good. Fernando Mendoza hasn't been able to get outside of the pocket and run as well as he wants to. Even though you're averaging 145 rush yards per game, you haven't run the football as well as you would have liked to this season. Done. Miami's rush defense is going to be better than whatever Cal's going to be able to throw at them offensively. This just feels like a Miami team, and the battle of the trenches is just as important as quarterback play, if not more. Quarterback play can tell a lot about a certain team, and yes, quarterback play can change a whole lot. Fernando Mendoza, I think, is going to be a difference maker and help Cal to possibly pull off the upset here in this game. But what sells this game for me and what makes me think, and what makes me think Miami is going to walk away with the win and avoid a top 10 upset bid is because of their trench play. Not only on that last slide that I just showed you, but even offensively as well, where the offensive line has been good. And this is the Cal defense that, I mean, when you take a look at it, sure, they forced 9 sacks this year. They forced a ton of 10 sacks this year, I should say. They forced 11 turnovers so far this season. If Cal's going to want to win this game, they got to force Miami turnovers. They've got to get Miami off of the field. I just don't see that happening on a consistent enough basis. And even though I think Fernando Mendoza is going to have his moments, I don't think his offensive line play is going to help him out as much as it needs to for him to be able to go pound for pound and punch for punch and blow for blow with this Miami Hurricane offense that could prove at the end of the year to be the best in college football. This is a 10:30 game on ESPN. Again, a really, really late one. Game day will be here. And again, this is a game in which Miami's first true road game, I do believe. No, that's actually a lie because they did go play in the Swamp. But Miami's first road test here, at least traveling all the way across the country. I'll say this. Miami's first road game not in their own state, not in the state of Florida. Maybe the travel gets to them a little bit. Cal has the necessary pieces, I think, if everything goes well to pull this off. I just think Miami's offense is way too dynamic. Cal's line of scrimmage play, especially offensively, is not good enough. Watch out for this one, though. If Miami turns the football over, they're not playing as well as they have throughout this season. Cal can definitely pull this thing off if everything goes well. I just think too many things are in Miami's favor. I'll go with the Hurricanes 34-24. Closer than people expect, but the Hurricanes survive the upset bid. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.